Wake up, get ready, time to shine, it's your day. Join team together, making dreams come true.
Well, as Dan mentioned, my background, I've been in talent acquisition 30 years, and it's all been in the manufacturing sector. So all different types, whether it's consumer, industrial, automotive, it's been tied into any of those types of industries. I began my career on the search side, so I do know there's a lot of the audience here where there's a lot of agencies and third-party recruiters. So I started my career on that side of the fence. And then in the late 90s, when companies started to bring that model in-house, my role, I was able to get an opportunity in Northeast Ohio with a company. And so since 97, I've been working for corporations. So I've worked for a lot of different world headquarters, a lot of different Fortune 500 companies in this space. So, it's Dan, and as I got to know Dan and I put in Hire EZ about a year ago, I was talking to Dan and I said, I have a lot to share because there is a lot of similarities when you look at how you operate on the agency side and how you operate in-house. And, I felt that there was a lot of things I've learned over the years that I thought would be beneficial to an event like this. So, what I'm focused on is kind of, you look at this circle here. When I look at talent acquisition, I look at it in three buckets. You have the competencies, you have your technology, then you have your metrics. How do you measure your performance? And today I'm going to focus more on the competency section here, and what what I think makes internal recruiters very successful, but also makes internal recruiters build credibility. Just like agencies, you have a lot of customers, return customers that trust you, you've built relationships with. Well, we have to do the same thing internally. We got to build relationships with different functions, different levels, and they have to understand that, we're here as the subject matter expert to support their position. So, when I look at the strategic advisor, that's how we train here. That's how I've trained my recruiters in the past. You got to be comfortable to challenge managers with tools and data. So you got to be able to push back. We're the advisor. And so I think when you have this opportunity, it allows TA the opportunity to provide that strategic direction using data. Hire managers, they're going to be continue to be well informed. When you have data and you have tools that can pull analytics, then you can demonstrate to the managers your recruiting strategy. When I look at years ago, we didn't have this technology. So it was more of, what I said versus what the managers are thinking. Now, we have data to be able to show them analytics, what the strategy is, what the market landscape looks like. And that market landscape is always changing. So your recruitment strategies must change, and you must be up to date on these strategies to stay competitive. This will help demonstrate your expertise with these hiring managers, and it'll build trust. And I think that's why I've been successful over the 30 years, especially working in-house, is my ability to have teams that could guide managers, build trust with hiring managers. So it's a TA's ability to question any strategy not supported by data analytics. So that's where you got to be comfortable. You're going to have hiring managers. We all had this. They all think they know how to recruit. And hiring managers think they have all the answers. Well, they don't. And so this is where you have the ability to question any strategy that comes your way that's not supported by data or any type of analytics. So when I look at this approach, this is what I focus on, and this is what my team of recruiters focus on how to be successful. One, you want a partner. You're the one that gives the guidance. You're the expert on all the strategies and tools. Number two is focus on business results. You gotta understand your business. You gotta understand your customers. You gotta understand workforce planning, where there's skill gaps, and then you need to educate managers on that landscape, where that talent is, how competitive it is to get that talent. Next is to advise. So you're advising on strategy. So before you start a search or before you get into that, you're sitting with that hiring manager and advising them, here's the best strategies to attract the talent based off of what you're looking for. And you help those managers understand these talent strategies and tools. And you make them understand, this is how I'm going to go find this talent. And then here's the pools available. But here's the barriers. Here's maybe some risks involved. And then that's where you get into dialogue with these managers. And you might be able to define your search. You want to continue to influence those outcomes. So again, you're demonstrating all the research you've done, how you source. You're taking that consultative approach to influence the business. You're driving the outcome. It's not the other way. You're not an order taker. So when I look at recruiters, especially in-house, a lot of them are order takers. We're not order takers. Our job here is to influence and be consultative. Steve just talked about sourcing. When you look at sourcing, again, how do you find the talent? What's that market landscape look like? Give them the intelligence when you're starting a search. This shows them that you have a strategy in place to go source. A lot of hiring managers internally, they think they don't know. And then right away, a week goes by and they think nothing's being done. And then they're coming up with options. So that's why we're very thorough. Here's our sourcing strategy. Here's how we're going to go to market. Here's what we're finding in the market. But also you use this strategy in calibration. So maybe 2 weeks go by, you've done your sourcing. This is what you're seeing. Maybe it's the salary's out of whack. Maybe it's location. But then you're bringing that data back. And again, it's a consultative approach. You're driving the process, not the customer. You become that subject matter expert. So well-informed, the trends, the labor market. You have a stronger voice when you have data analytics. You become more of a strategic partner. You're not an order taker just filling a job. And that's where it goes, the data-driven approach. Advising managers on these strategies, on data rather than perception. And then you just continue to maintain that competitive advantage. So the market landscape, understanding the external marketplace, that's where like my role, I can continue to educate the business on what's going on. I know where we're going in the future, what skill gaps, but then giving them this competitive advantage. And you have all the technology out there to be able to do this. So this is what I train recruiters on. And this is where the kind of the mindset of competencies come in. You got to think this way in these buckets. How you build that strong partnership. The strong partnership is one, your access to data. So you must have the tools. And, we all use LinkedIn. We all use Indeed. And I added a year ago, Hire Easy. And I implemented Hire Easy for 2 reasons. One, I needed another tool for my recruiters to be able to source and have strong sourcing strategies. But 2, I needed a tool that could give me analytics and data as well, so that my recruiters could be more of an advisory approach and build a strong partnership. So the access to data and being able to interpret that data and leverage that with the managers, and then make data-driven decisions. So you're leveraging that data to inform the managers before the search starts, not waiting till 60 days when you say, I can't find anybody. This is what's going on. The managers are upset. Everybody's at each other because, there was issues. You can find these issues from day one. If you run the data and you put a sourcing strategy in place, you're going to know the risks and the barriers up front. Then you educate the manager on those. So you're using these analytics to enforce the recruiting strategies. It shows the manager you're well structured, and it shows how effective you can be. And then you're communicating it. So again, proactively, you're approaching the managers with, okay, here's a barrier. Like, let me give you an example. We have a facility up in East Providence, Rhode Island, a plant. And when we look for talent, whether it's finance, engineering, the salary type positions, we need individuals out of manufacturing. Well, when you run the data and the analytics, there's not a lot of manufacturing companies up in that area. And you only have, 50-mile drive is about an hour. So most people, give or take, might drive an hour, might not. But that's kind of your focus. When I run the data and I'm able to show the managers, here's companies. There's only 12 manufacturing companies. There's only this amount to pull from, is whether it's a diversity pool or, here's the salaries up in that market, in that region. Okay, now I'm talking about maybe unrealistic expectations. So the manager might say, okay, let's rechange the search. I didn't realize that's what I'm up against. So you're addressing that at the beginning of the search, not 30 days in, not 60 days in, not 90 days in. And so you get what my recruiters do is get options. We got option A and option B to recruit. And then here's what we run into. So when I look at their partnership, it comes down to, again, your ability with data, analytics, and then communication. And then that ties in to show that you're the consultant, you're the advisor. And again, here's 3 other areas, and it's all tied into what I was just talking about, data and metrics. You got to understand your business. The business is the customer. So you build your strategies around there. So as I work with my groups and understand the different businesses, our demographics, where we're going, maybe acquisitions, that's how we build our strategies. We got to understand the business goals. Where's that business going in 2025? Where are we focused? And then again, I question any strategies that are presented my way if it's not supported by data. And if you look at data, these are the 3 areas that I leverage here. I have Hire Easy, Indeed, and LinkedIn. I got 3 data points. So if somebody does challenge me and say, well, that's only 1 data point, it's almost like compensation. You use Mercer, Watson Wyatt. You might use a 3rd one. Most of your comp departments use 3 different ones. And that's where they get their data when they're doing a comp analysis for your positions, right? Do the same thing with recruiting. You leverage these insights as analytics. And then again, you inform, you calibrate, you build strategies. Data-driven resources. And I've worked with a lot out there. And, these 3 tools, I don't need another tool right now. These 3 tools have been very successful. I use Hire Easy first. That is the number 1 analytics insight that we use, because the nice feature is too, you can download these into a nice PDF and show more of an executive summary. And that's kind of how we present it with the hiring managers. So I'm basing all my decisions and strategies on data. How am I going to leverage that data analytics to build strategies to influence managers on the best way to fill those positions? So when you look at all this, this is how we look at talent acquisition. And so to be a strong TA in-house, you got to understand how to advise in all these areas. You really got to understand, because the business can come to you at any point on any one of these different areas. So, to be that TA advisor, the planning strategy, understand the talent segments, understand how to source, select. You better know employment law, especially with all the pay transparency laws now. There's 18 states that have different pay transparency. If you don't have the right information on your job postings, you're going to get fined. Tools and technologies, continue to keep up. Now, even though I mentioned that I have successful tools, I'm always looking at new tools. I'm always looking out there with the AI, what new tools are out there, what software. But again, you want to look at tools that are the right tools for your company in your size and that can complement what you already have. You don't want to duplicate. You want tools that can complement. Your vendor management. I gotta have a strong vendor list. If we need to go to the outside for search with agencies, I got to make sure I have the right partners. I got to make sure these partners operate the way I operate, the way my team operates. Okay, so the same thing we just talked about, that's how I expect a vendor to operate with us. And then I measure everything. So we have Workday as our ATS. I pull metrics from LinkedIn, Indeed, HireEZ, and I pull it from Workday. And that's how I manage everything. But my recruiters, when they're thinking about talent acquisition, we run it end to end. We run it from the day direct's created, the strategy, all the way up to the hire. And so they have to think about this design and understand that they got to be experts and be able to advise in any one of these buckets. And then lastly, remember, when you look at it, it's kind of a circle here. You know, you're adapting technology, you're using data to guide your strategy. But if you look at it, there's 7 areas that I think if you follow this, you build credibility, you're able to achieve your recruiting goals. So, you become a student of the business. You know the talent market, the landscape. You align your goals and objectives with the business. You engage and involve your hiring managers. Okay, you can't sit back and be afraid. You can't be silent. You have to be in the forefront. You got to use data. Data will improve your process and improve your ability to make decisions. You got to be proactive. I've seen a lot of in-house recruiters that just sit back and they're not proactive. They understand it. They have to understand that we run the process. We own the process. So we always have to be advising. And then, again, you're providing your ROI of TA. You're always learning. So I'm on a lot of these different, some of the speakers that are on the call today, I've seen them before and listened to them. I join as many as I can. There's a lot of things that I hear that I already know, but I always get 1 or 2 takeaways, which is great. So listening to, all these podcasts or events like this, that's how you're always learning. I always get a takeaway, which is great. And then I can take it and apply. So if you keep this the circle in mind, this is where you become a true TA advisor. And that's where you build the credibility with your managers.
Oh,